Good evening, guys. Now, here we go again. As I was saying earlier, but you didn't hear me, I'm having some salami for my lunch. And you guys have just had your pork burgers, and they sounded awesome. Hopefully when I'm home in 2 weeks, guys, we can have some together. Maybe, if the weather's not too bad, maybe we'll have a barbecue. How does that sound? Okay, so here we go. Tonight we're going to do a story, and it's a story from a very famous old writer. And his name is Hans Christian Andersen. And he wrote many, many great stories. Very famous stories. And here's one that I found that I think might be nice. It's not too long. And it's called The Happy Family. So, The Happy Family by Hans Christian Andersen. So, but as you know, when you see me looking away, it's because I'm reading. Okay? Now, really, the biggest green leaf in the whole world is a dock leaf. And if you hold it before yourself, it looks like a big green apron. And if you put it over your head in rainy weather, it's as good as any umbrella, because it is huge. But this leaf never grows alone, and where it grows, there's never only one, there's always lots. And it's great, it's with great happise that snails find it, because when snails find it, they have a feast. The great white snails who is known as the biggest and the friendliest of all the snails, love to eat it. And they will go, how delicious, because they think it is so tasty. They actually live on dock leaves, and therefore other seeds were sown. Now, once upon a time, there was an old manor house where they no longer ate snails. Remember when we were in Enniscorthy, me, Mummy and Raya ate snails? They weren't very tasty, there wasn't a lot of garlic in them. But anyway, the snails were extinct, and the leaves were not extinct. They grew all over the place, all over the fields, all over the beds, and there were no weeds. It was a whole forest of dock leaves. Here and there stood an apple tree or a plum tree, but everywhere else, all you could see was dock leaves. And in that area, there lived the very last 2 giant white snails. The snails themselves didn't know how old they were, but they could remember very well that there had been many more of their friends, and that there was a whole family of them in different places, and that for them and their family, the forest was planted just so they could eat. They had never been outside the forest, but they knew there was still something more in the world, which was called the manor house where the Lord lived. And that they were boiled and they became black, and they were placed in a silver dish. All of their family had been eaten by the people in the manor. And in fact, one day if they were found, they would be boiled. And they were afraid at that. But they said because of the leaves, it was a great place to live. Because there was nobody going after them, there was no earthworms, there were no toads. And then, so they felt safe apart from the people in the big house. The old white snails were the first persons of distinction in the world. They were here before man, they were here before dinosaurs. And they knew the forest was planted, and that was because of them everything would be okay. But now they lived a very lonely life, and because they had no children, and they had adopted no snails, so they were all on their own. But they were happy, because they knew how lucky they were. All the other snails who had ventured outside the forest had been caught, and they all had been eaten. So they decided, maybe we like it living here, and maybe we shouldn't go outside. So they stayed there for a long time, and they kept eating all the dock leaves. And they got fatter and fatter and happier and happier. And now they are 150 years old, but nobody can find them, because every time they see or they hear a noise, they hide under one of the many, many dock leaves. The end. So there's your story, guys. What? You want another story? No. How can you want two stories? Well, let me see. Now, I just happen to have another story, but what I need to do is I need to have the end of my lunch, because now I ate all my lunch, so I have lots of energy, so I can read for you the second story, which is called The Bewitched Kerry Cow. So, a long, long time ago, not far from Rathmullen in the county of Donegal, lived a family called Hanlon. They lived in a beautiful small farmhouse. The fields were far away, and the family people named them Docherty. Both families had good cows, but the Hanlons were fortunate that they had a Kerry cow that gave more milk and really yellow butter than any other family. Grace Docherty, the beautiful young girl from their family, who was more admired and loved in the neighbourhood than anyone else, she had a huge interest in the Kerry cow, and one night knocked on Miss Hanlon's door with a request. "Will you let me milk your Kerry cow, please?" "And why would you wish to milk wee Molly, our Kerry cow?" asked Mrs. Hanlon. "Oh, just because you're busy at the moment." "Thank you kindly, Grace, but I'm not too busy to do my own work. I'll not trouble you to do the milking for me." The girl turned away very sad, and the next evening and the next she came back to the house with the same request. Every day Miss Hanlon, not knowing how to persist refusal, said yes, and allowed the little girl to milk her Kerry cow. She soon had reason to regret her want. Molly gave no milk to the owner. When this sad state lasted for 3 days, the Hanlons applied to a certain Mick McCarrion who lived near the Binion and who was known to overcome bewitchment. "That cow has been milked by someone with an evil eye," he said. "She will give you a wee drop every now and again, maybe a pint." "Aye, Mark, dear Molly, will you give me that truth? Will you let me have that milk?" said the old man. "What must he do then, Miss Hanlon, is lock the door and get 9 new pins that were never used in clothes, and put them into a saucepan with a pint of milk. We need to set them on fire and let it come to the boil." The 9 pins began to simmer in Molly's milk. Then she heard big steps coming toward the door and banging on the door. It was Grace Doherty banging on the door. Let me in, Miss Hanlon, please. Take that cruel pot off the fire. Take out them pins, for they're pricking holes in my body and in my eyes and in my heart. I promise I'll never offer to touch the milk of yours again." You know, there's hardly a village in Ireland where the milk is not believed to have been stolen in the past. There are many charms to overcome this unlucky luck of evil. Sometimes new horseshoe or donkey shoe is put under the churn with 3 straws. If possible, if it's stolen at midnight from a thatched cottage with the evil eye, it cannot be fixed. So, if you have a cow, keep it locked up. Do not let evil people come and steal your cow. Love you guys. Mwah.